So here we are with the May 2024 forecast. We begin this month with this stellium that we've been dealing with really for a couple of months, where there's a strong activation in Pisces, Aries, and Taurus. And for the weeks upon weeks, hardly anything has been different than this chunk of energy. Now, you may know that if you're born with this kind of a strong focus in one area of life, such as Katy Perry, who has a huge stellium, almost all in the first house in 3 signs, you are a driven person. You don't, you've got the rest of life in your chart and things will happen in those areas of life, but you have a sense of focus and drive in particular areas. So for each one of you listening to this, the key thing to keep focusing back to is what houses are Pisces, Aries, and Taurus in your chart? And what planets do you have there that are being activated by conjunction? And I often feel that the conjunction as a transit is one of the most important transits that we have, because I love Bernadette Brady's description of a conjunction, in that the planet moves in and merges with the natal planet, and the natal planet doesn't realize it's happened. The natal planet is suddenly acting differently according to the energies of the planet that's moved in on it, but it's not completely aware because it is a merge. Whereas with an opposition, you get the projection issue usually, where you feel like somebody else is the problem, but you have to own the energy and integrate it, compromise with it. Or a square, where you have a specific experience that is challenging to deal with, and you have to find a creative way to deal with it. Now, in the sky, as we are coming into this month, we have Pluto square to Venus. So by the time we get to the new moon, which is on May 7th, and remember, Venus moves about 1 degree a day, Venus is almost out of range of this square, but it means we're in that square coming in. And Pluto representing transformation, empowerment of things that are wounded or corrupt, and in Aquarius in a way that is fast and innovative, technological perhaps, something a little bit surprising. And Venus in Taurus representing the attraction of relationship and resources in a way that Venus loves to do with, Taurus energy, grounded, secure, stable. We have this challenge really between the two of them that may be operating in people's lives as financial issues, relationship issues, feeling maybe controlled or manipulated by situations. Something is building as we approach the month of May. But apart from that, we're going to be dealing here with what is, virtually, I'm going to call it a oneness, like when you get 3 or more planets in a sign or in a house, they operate together. And as we're talking about, sort of merged and blended, not necessarily self-aware of the way those energies are all together, and they don't operate individually so much anymore. And when we get them even in different signs here, there's going to be a sense of that, the fullness of that energy. So we are in this long-term process of Neptune and Saturn in Pisces. Neptune's been there since 2011. And what's important about Neptune right now for everybody to realize is that it's really getting into that last degree. So 28 and change, 29 and some. And that indicates that we are coming as a collective into the integration phase of what Neptune in Pisces has been meaning for us since 2010, 2011, when it started edging in to Pisces. And, that was a time when suddenly, gay marriage got approved, cannabis became accepted, and stores popped up everywhere. You know, Pisces and Neptune ruling drugs and substances, uh, ruling compassion and care for people who have been marginalized. So there was a huge influx of compassionate, more open-minded energy. And now as we pass through this whole time period, we're at the point where a large number of what's called plant medicines, not all of them are actually plant-based, like psilocybin or ayahuasca or um, the different, like bofu, different sort of indigenous substances, but also like MDMA, which is really great for trauma and more of a drug, but still what used to be considered more of a, what would we call it? A playful drug, right? A rave drug. So we have this movement of the psychotherapy world moving into these substances to enhance healing at a very deep level. So that's where we've gone from, okay, we can have in some states some cannabis stores approved even just for recreational use. And now we have this huge level of research toward, much more acceptance of altered states of consciousness being what will help people heal and thrive. But there's also tremendous losses. Neptune in Pisces is the floods, the hurricanes, the rising sea levels, the overwhelm that we all feel from the many, many tragic losses everywhere. And since May 2023, when Saturn came into Pisces, we've all been asked to deepen our discipline, our maturity, our groundedness about all things Pisces. So whether that's deepening your meditation or your yoga practice or Tai Chi or Qigong, or whether you go toward the arts and transcendent creativity, whether you bring it in from others or you do it yourself, how you actually take mature action as it relates to people in your life or people in the world that you wish to help, but finding that place of healthy boundaries. And that kind of ties in with the endless, or at least year and a half process that feels a little endless of South Node in Libra, asking us to let go of ways that we give too much for others at our own expense, while we deepen our sense of connection to Aries, to what that highest life force energy is for us. So the Saturn Neptune in Pisces is adjacent to the Libra Aries nodal structure. And they have a little bit of a tie-in with each other and help us be both compassionate and also have boundaries, also pay attention to what our true energy levels are. And you can see here when you see that at this new moon in May, that Mars is at almost 6 degrees of Aries, moving about 2 degrees a day. We know that it has, just been in the process of moving out of Pisces into Aries. And that's been very significant. And I've talked about that more in the weekly forecast, that even though we've been having all this Aries energy and we had a solar eclipse on April 8th in Aries, that the fact that the dispositor, the ruling planet of Aries, has been in Pisces, blended with the Saturn Neptune, has given us a very nuanced sense of, I need to do what I want to do. I need to take action. I need to be brave and courageous and single-minded and independent. And also, I'm connected to my spiritual source. I'm connected to my soul path. I want to operate compassionately, even though I'm doing what I feel like I need to do. So as we come a little bit more to unpack the Aries at this point of time of this new moon, we have the Mars, the North Node, Chiron, and Mercury all together. And they form a decent sextile to the Pluto, especially we're starting with Mars, but that will mean that Pluto is in some way affecting this entire grouping of energy, and that transformative new idea piece that Pluto brings is part of what we're working with this month. And Mars is going to continually move toward that North Node. It's asking us to take action, start new things. And of course, this start new things piece is connected to the solar eclipse on April 8th, the Uranus-Jupiter alignment exact that just happened last Saturday on the 20th of April, and the continuation of this node. And we are, when we had that solar eclipse, Chiron was exactly conjunct. So the solar eclipse was a burst forward of strong energy that will play out over the next 3 to 6 months, I think even longer. But with Chiron, where we get it supercharged so that the idea of healing deeply, going inside and realizing those places where we just don't have an accurate assessment of ourselves and the choices that we're making, and that we honor ourselves for all the ways we've survived, all the ways we've been strong and courageous, and see ourselves continuing on that path. And here with the new moon, Mercury is tightly conjunct Chiron. Well, Mercury, the planet of the mind, communication, the way we process data, is truly, with this new moon, processing all of this new start. Can I be aligned with self energy? Can I feel alive? Can I cultivate beingness at its highest level? And it's really, really clear to me that we are in, yet another consciousness shift, where the potential to move outside of a lot of the stress and negative energy that's pervading the media, and bringing people to this place of hopelessness, that we have this possibility to stay attuned to the higher frequencies and manifest powerfully what it is we're trying to do to turn the system around here, because we are in a systemic change. It's not something that happens overnight, but we really do have to stay aligned to this more positive energy. Aries will just jump in. Aries will run into the fire and rescue the kitten. And we have to see where is that needed in our life, and where can we cultivate that. And then, of course, we come to the new moon itself at 18 degrees of Taurus, and we know that that is very, very close to the Uranus-Jupiter that just happened on the 20th. And so this whole new moon is another activation of Uranus-Jupiter. So Uranus, radical change, awakening, freedom, innovation, technology, and then Jupiter, expansion, generosity, bigger picture, being in alignment with beliefs. Now, the shadow side of this can be changes that are uncomfortable for us to experience. Things that shock us about what's going on in the planet, Taurus, or new understandings about physicality in some way, our own body. I would say that I'm hearing a lot of people who are making some radical changes in their health. And I feel like, on one hand, we got Aries, which is vitality. And on another hand, we've got Taurus, which is, connected to the body. And Venus asks us to be in relationship with people, our bodies, physicality, resources, the earth. The new moon suggests a start. It's not an eclipse, but it is in a pretty key point. We have, again, the Uranus-Jupiter. They're still in Taurus, and they're staying pretty close together for another few months. So we have a lot of time to contemplate our creative ventures, the new ideas we have, and what it is we're launching. So although there was a lot of new start energy in April, and many of us are moving forward with things, even though the Mercury retrograde has been a little bit of a challenge. Mercury, of course, just went direct. I think it's yesterday. I'm kind of losing track of my days. It's the 25th that it went direct, and will continue to, gain some speed and, move into Taurus as well as we move into the month. I wish I knew what day it was. Yeah, today's the 26th. It's all going so fast. I don't know if some of you feel that, but sometimes I go to brush my teeth and I'm not sure if I just brushed them, because it just seems like the last time was so close. It's just everything is flooding together. But here we are with Aries Taurus moving forward. Not going to worry in a general reading too much about, the vertex. This is just for this time in Washington or part of Fortune. Not going to worry about those extra things. This is where it's important for you to focus as you're thinking about this time period. And then we come to the full moon, and it is on May 23rd, 9:53 a.m. Eastern time. And the full moon is at virtually 3 degrees Sagittarius. So that means the moon in Sagittarius, where we think first of what habit patterns are we letting go of? Where are we feeling emotionally stuck in some way? And the shadow of Sagittarius is overamped beliefs, thinking that you have the God's truth and you're the only one that knows anything. Whereas the sun in Gemini asks us to become open-minded, to learn more, to experience more, to check all the different perspectives. So I would say with this full moon, which is happening toward the end of the month, to be considering, like, what is it what is it you're learning? How can you let go of extremism in your beliefs, in your philosophies? And you can see here at the time of the full moon, conjunct, even though in the sign of Taurus, we have Jupiter and Venus. So Jupiter is the planet that holds the intention to understand our meaning of life. So wherever Jupiter is in your chart natally, take a moment to think about that, what sign it's in, what house it's in. This is the part of you that's always seeking meaning and truth in life. And then when it's somewhere else in the chart, it's where it's gone on its little journey and it's sending you postcards and saying, okay, this is what this kind of truth and meaning is. How can we synthesize that and integrate that? Jupiter in the last degree of Taurus, along with Venus, and we'll count Uranus as well, is saying, here's beliefs that relate to security, safety, physicality, the body, contentment, ease and flow, and the earth, the planet itself. And here are the kinds of relationships we could have that would augment that could be part of our experience. And here's the radical new ideas, Uranus, that we can have where we can break out of patterns where we're stuck and we can have something new. Now, what I think about when I'm just saying this is I work with a lot of clients who are activists, who are involved in these various nonprofits around the country that are working to create a new kind of financial equality for the world. They're working with resource management, with the redistribution of wealth, with different kinds of housing and how people can live maybe more communally instead of everybody being out, where the goal state in our culture is, when you've made it, you've got some big box house and you're living by yourself with your partner and a couple of dogs or kids or something. And, that old story that was sold to us big time in the 50s, where we moved away from being more connected to families and decided that success was having all this individuality. It's coming back full circle now with different kinds of ideas of how we can live more joyfully, more simply, more easily. And I would say this full moon has something to do with that, and letting go of old values and opening the mind into newer ideas. And we also have Mercury in Taurus, so that becomes part of the stellium. So there's a lot of thinking and processing and maybe even communication about different ways to work with resources. So although some people have been very worried about Jupiter Uranus having to do with financial collapse or radical, negative, unpleasant financial problems, and of course, we're seeing a lot of companies are laying off people or closing down, filing for bankruptcy at this point in time. And that can scare us. It can feel like that's a negative thing. But I feel like we also have to realize, well, first of all, with the tech companies, they super overhired around 2020, 2022. So, with everything changing, people staying home, new ideas, and not really this super huge launch of AI, they hired a lot and not necessarily in the areas everybody's going. So there's a lot of reconfiguring going on there. But I also feel there's a lot of reconfiguring of the fact that this capitalist economy is built on growth and endless growth. And that's not going to work for humans going forward, and it's not working for the environment going forward. So it's a painful readjustment that we're in, but I feel that we can, work toward holding the truth that the readjustment can possibly take us to a better, more healthful way of living and working and being. And certainly we know that AI is going to take a lot of jobs going forward, and that sounds scary too. But we also just saw that the government was capable of sending everybody checks to stay home for a year. We have to figure out how the whole idea of life gets reconfigured so that less humans are doing certain kinds of jobs, and humans are retrained to do different things. And maybe we have a little more space in our lives. Maybe there's a way that we have time to create local gardens and, do art or change careers 3 or 4 times in our life. So these are the kinds of huge changes that I see we will go through in the next 20 years with Pluto and Aquarius. And we are just at the beginning launch of this. And I think we all know, they've been following astrology for a while, that Pluto is edged into 2 degrees Aquarius. And here, interestingly, at this full moon, it is in a trine, a really tight trine with the full moon. And so it just adds emphasis to these like transformational ideas that will be infusing us now and in the future. North Node still in Aries, still moving backwards. It's now gone past the halfway point in May. And we have Mars still activating us going forward around new ideas and independence. And Chiron still about, understanding the wound in a different way and accepting Aries energy in us wherever it is, finding that kernel of life, the grass growing up through the cracks. Now we still see that we've got Neptune in that last degree of Pisces, Saturn coming up. One of the things that happens in usually around May is that the outer planets start moving retrograde. So you can see here that Pluto, being in red print, that means it's retrograde. And I think it's like the second of May, or the first or second, that it went retrograde in May. And so that begins the beginning of the summer. And one by one, the outer planets appear to be retrograde in the sky and give us the message to review. And reviewing these bigger picture energies of the collective, because the outer planets have a lot to do with major cultural and social issues. But the outer planets also, especially to the extent that they are aspecting your inner planets, will have very strong effects in your personal life, in your chart as well. So wherever you have Pluto in your chart, and think about that for a minute, the sign your Pluto's in, that's your generation. The house it's in, that's where you have a mandate to develop your power. And there's things about that or your experiences in that part of life that are scary and difficult. This is your time to look at this Pluto in Aquarius, and maybe do some things that scare you, because usually Plutonic stuff is a little scary. We have to face our deepest fears, fear of failure and shame and old emotions and ways power has been used against us. I mean, power gets used against us in the culture all the time, but many of us grew up in families where power was used against us. So we don't like power. We're afraid of it. So coming into your Pluto in its natal position is important for you to fulfill your destiny, for you to do the soul task you're here to do. And then noticing what's going on with this early degrees of Pluto in Aquarius and the full moon, 2 degrees Gemini, 2 degrees, almost 3 Sagittarius. Beliefs, learning, integration, and how do you create more stability? I want to point out, if we go back a little bit here, you can see the sun at 3, and you can see Uranus at 24 degrees Taurus. That tells us that the sun over the course of May was moving through those planets. So we had a Sun-Uranus alignment. Let me just look at my list of planets to see when exactly that was. May 6th, we have Mercury conjunct Chiron exactly. And May 13th is the Sun conjunct Uranus exactly. That's a brilliant time to make choices that are like innovative, things to just channel in. Uranus rules astrology, but it also rules, brilliant ideas, things that just come in very, very quickly. It is May 15th that Mercury goes into Taurus. So, Mercury in Aries, you can be a little bit faster and a little bit more bold and brave in the way you're thinking about things. But mid-May, to have Mercury go into Taurus is a time where the mind slows down, and day by day by day, it's getting more connected with this Taurus mandate for security and stability. And by the time we get to May 17th, Mercury is in square to Pluto. So at that point, the thinking process going deep is also challenged by that need for the transformation and the intensity. May 18th, we have Venus conjunct Uranus. So that also is, relationship and resources, and the attraction principle may be getting a speed up. That can be a day where something changes in a relationship, or you find yourself attracted to someone who's not your normal type, somebody who's a little bit unique and different in some way. The 18th, we also have the Sun conjunct Jupiter. So expansion, choices where maybe you're going to feel a little over the top. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about the month. The middle days of the month, things seem like they're popping. There's a little bit of intensity. And even by the 19th, we've got Mars conjunct the North Node. So you can see here at the full moon, it's just a little bit past it. The sun moves into Gemini on May 20th. Venus conjunct Jupiter on the 23rd. And, here we can see it's very strongly just looking at it. And then we kind of finish out the month, nothing too major from my perspective. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the moon, which every day is doing different aspects to different things. But I will say that you can see here that Jupiter is in that, 29.5-degree Taurus position. It moves into Gemini on May 25th. And that is the beginning of a year-long transit of Jupiter in Gemini. So if you're one of the people who has Jupiter in Taurus, you are in the very last weeks now of your Jupiter return. So make sure that you grabbed onto the opportunities you want to grab onto. And all you who have Jupiter in Gemini, this is coming up into your time. Okay, so Jupiter brings us opportunities that usually we can feel them for 2-3 weeks. It moves pretty fast. It's not like Pluto that says, here, this is what you have to learn, and I'm going to just steamroll you until you learn it. Jupiter's like lighthearted about it. Here's an opportunity. You can have this blessing, this advantage, this expansion, but you have to believe that you deserve it. You have to believe you can have it and take it. And if not, I'm going on and I'm moving to the next location, and the next opportunity goes maybe somewhere else. So pay attention in this very strong Taurus time to opportunities that relate to where Taurus is in your chart, and take them because it's a 12-year cycle. So the opportunities you take now will often play out over the 12 years before you get to your next Jupiter return, or even just, Jupiter in an area of life. Doesn't have to be a Jupiter return, but whatever house Jupiter has been in this last year since last May, bringing you Taurus kinds of opportunities. This is the month to make sure that you have brought them in and you are stabilizing them. And then as it goes into Gemini, it's such a different flavor, right? We go from this steady, slower way into fast, curious, exciting, ready to go. So just think if there's any last thing I want to say here about the charts. No, I think that's good for now, and we can look at some personal charts and take some questions.